Hello there. Today we're going to talk about process innovation. But before we talk about process innovation, we talk about what is a process actually. Because I've found, surprisingly enough, that while many people work with processes, they know what they are, they know why they're relevant to their work life, there are also a lot who really like, oh, process, it's a bad word. It's something they don't really know what it is, they don't know why they should care. It's linked to things like compliance and things like documentation. We don't like it. We don't like process, whatever it may be. So if you're one of those, and even if you're not, I'm going to start there. I'm going to start with what's a process and why should you care? So let's start with cooking. Cooking is a great example. A recipe for making pancakes is an example of a process. You start with A, then you go to B to C, blah, 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 and at the end you have pancakes. Now, if you start with buying the eggs, then you smash the eggs, then you whip the eggs, then you pour in some milk and some flour and some sugar, and then you bake the pancakes. It's a simple way of describing how to do pancakes, the pancake process, so to speak. This is going to fail if you buy the eggs after you've smashed them, unless, of course, you have some sort of weird deal with the supermarket. But just to say that processes, while simple, can be pretty vital of what things happen in which order and how they function. But that's cooking. Let's look at something that's a little bit more close to kind of business for a lot of us. Package delivery. In these corona times, a lot of us have been living off package delivery. So let's look at what does a process like that look like, actually, when we go into detail. Well, first off, from the customer perspective, it's pretty simple. You make an order on some sort of website, some sort of form, and then you pay some money. It could be by credit card or by Bitcoin or by bank transfer or PayPal. There are many ways of paying. And then you wait until they tell you it's going to arrive. And then finally you get your package and you're happy. And that's what it looks like from the customer perspective. Now, what does it look like from the manager perspective? What does it look like when you're the one receiving it? Let's say you're a small company that sells, I don't know what you sell. Maybe you take care of delivering refrigerators to people. But you're a small company, so this is not a big operation. This is small, but you're the manager gets in an order here. An order pops up on some screen. You get it through. Maybe you've made a sale on your website, but it pops up, and you now have to deal with, okay, now some sort of customer has paid money, which is nice, but there's also an order. And then the manager calls Max. Let's just say that this guy's name is Max, yes? Max is one of your employees, and Max is supposed to fix it. And then you tell Max, okay, you're going to go down to the store, where the kind of a B2B store where we buy our refrigerators, the distribution center, call it what you will. Then you're going to package it so it's nice and it's ready for the customer. And then you're going to drive it in our delivery truck. And finally, we're going to deposit the money in our bank accounts and not worry about them. Now, they're already there probably, but there may be returns. It's not until you've delivered, it's pretty smart to not count the money as something that's in your account, even though it may be there. So this is the simple process from the manager's perspective. Now, what does this look like from Max's perspective? Here's Max. So first off, it starts with a conversation. Max gets told by his boss, Max, this is what I want. That's step number one. Step number two is Max now has it on his screen and he checks, okay, is everything there? What's going to happen? That's great. Then Max goes to the store. Then Max packages it and then takes the truck and delivers it, and everybody's happy. 6-step process, very simple. Well, the reality is a little bit more like this. And it's tempting to ask yourself, what just happened? How did it go from that to that? So here's what actually happens. And I'm going to run it through you, and you can think, oh, but that's obvious, that's simple. But the reality is that a lot of these things have room for error. So I'm going to run you through a process, what it could look like. You can come up with all your own ideas of what it could look like in a different way, what could be changed, etc. But this is the example I'm giving you. So first, the boss calls and says, Max, you need to do this. Okay. Now, the first step is that Max needs to be able to call back, or at least be on the phone and say, I don't get it, or what's this, or you're missing this, or this is unclear in the email, to ask questions. And sometimes there are no questions, but often there's small ones, especially in a small startup that doesn't have heavily streamlined processes. Because some info is missing, or something is unclear, or just Max doesn't have the same understanding as his boss, so therefore he asks questions. So step number 2 is, okay, boss, but what about this? What about that? And maybe it can be done the same one. Maybe if the boss calls, Max can ask immediately, but more probably Max gets it an email or a Slack notification or something like that, and then has to deal with that. So step 2 is calling back and saying, hey, did I actually get this all right? And what about this? And what about that? Then Max has the order on screen. Everything's good here. We're at step 3. The order's on screen. And now Max needs to talk to one of his coworkers to find out a lot of things, it turns out. Find out, he needs to say, okay guys, I'm going to leave for a couple of hours, I need to run an errand, or I need to deliver a package, which is what we do, but I need to make sure of a couple of things. Now first off, Max, wait for a moment there. We'll imagine that that conversation just went smoothly and there was no problem. Max coordinated stuff with the coworker. He grabs his fancy purse, which is step number 5. In that purse is, of course, his wallet. And in that wallet is the company credit card. Now, this is back to point number 4. The first conversation was about, Andrea, I need to have the company credit card. And Andrea then says, oh, great, I'll just go get it. It's in the office. It's here. Here it is. You can have it. But already here, there's some trickiness, because Max needs to have the company credit card. We'll see why he needs it later, but that's step number 7. So not only does he need to grab his purse, he needs to grab his wallet, which is in his purse, and he needs to have that company credit card, which may or may not at this point have been in his purse to begin with, or in his wallet. Now, step number 8 is Max goes down to their loading bay, and he grabs the pallet mover, whatever that's called in English, the roll cart, the thing where you can move refrigerators. Then he grabs the car, the company car, and then he drives to the store. Well, the distribution center. Now, here he needs to make sure that it's open, because it might not be open at the time he's coming. Maybe this is all coming in after they've closed or before they've opened. So he needs to double check a thing there. And then he needs to do the actual shopping. He needs to walk around the store. He needs to say, okay, I need this refrigerator, get contact with some employee, make sure things are as they should be. And then he comes to the checkout where he pays with the company credit card, because Max can't just pay for a refrigerator off his own money. He's not like super rich. He's in the refrigerator business. So, especially in a startup. So, of course, Max would like to have that company credit card with him, and that's what he pays with right now. Then he takes the pallet mover, and then he gets it out to the truck. He loads the refrigerator onto the truck, and we're now on step 15. My clicker is a little bit tricky today. That's why I'm proceeding slower than I would. Need to change the batteries on that. Good example of a simple thing where the process can fail. Now Max gets back to the office. He packages it, makes sure it's kind of, I'm not going to say wrapped nicely because we're delivering a refrigerator here, right? But at least ready to go out to the customer. Maybe has the appropriate paperwork, etc. Then he finds the customer's location on the map, and he then checks, oh, are we still within the allotted time that we've told the customer? If we said we're going to be there by 4, and it's now 2, and there's half an hour there, then he needs to wait to go. And if he's too late, he needs to reschedule that. Because today's customers, oh, we are not just happy with being told, it'll come at some time, you better be home. No. We want to know, when is the delivery? When should we be there? And we are not happy if those times are not held. So Max needs to also check the clock at this point. That's step 18. Then he gets into the car, and then he again drives there, and then, of course, again, he uses the lifter to get the refrigerator out. And he now talks to the customer. Now, the customer at this point is hopefully happy receiving their new refrigerator, saying, oh, how delightful. Thank you very much for a smooth operation. And then he takes the car, drives back to the office, and he's happy. This is if nothing goes wrong. Let's just look at one example where thing goes wrong. Let's look at step number 13. So Max is in the store, and he has the cart, and he has the refrigerator, and he pulls out the company credit card, and you realize, I don't have the credit card. I can't pay for the thing. Oh no, this whole thing's going to break down. What went wrong? Well, first off, he might look at, did he forget to bring his purse? Did he forget to grab that from the office when he left? Because, of course, then he doesn't have the credit card. Or maybe he took his purse, but he didn't check that his wallet was in there. Maybe somebody had borrowed his wallet, or maybe he'd put it on a desk while he was doing something. Maybe he bought something with one of his own credit cards, and he'd had that on his desk, and he'd forgotten to put it back in his purse. So maybe he just forgot to bring the wallet, but he does have the purse. So he does have things like keys, etc. So he didn't notice. Maybe he didn't check that the company credit card was there. Maybe he thought, oh, I have the company credit card. But it turns out, no, Andrea had it because she'd used it for something the day earlier. So there's the problem. He has the wallet, but he just doesn't have the credit card. It might also be that he just forgot it in the car. In this case, it's pretty easy to fix. He goes out, he gets the thing, he comes back and pays. So that's a minor thing. The closer you move up to, here we're at step 9, the closer you move to where the problem is, usually the less you have to go back and fix it. Usually. It could also be that it had been lost already here, because when he talked to Andrea, he was supposed to figure out, okay, who's got the credit card? Where is it? And she said, oh, yeah. It's already in the car. I left it there. It's company policy. Who knows? But maybe it didn't. Maybe this is where the mistake occurred. And maybe he'd forgotten about it. Maybe Andrea had forgotten about it. Maybe they'd just been stressed out. Things happen. Or maybe even the moment he talked to his boss, the boss says, oh, yeah, and you can't use the company credit card because of something. Somebody else is using it. I'm using it. I forgot it at home. There could be many reasons. And then, while doing all the other stuff, this has somehow eluded Max, or he doesn't really have a solution for it. So it could also have been that he already knew at this point, or that he should have known at this point, but he didn't. So he's right there, he's in the store, and he doesn't have the credit card. Now, of course, there is the option, which is that he finds something else to pay with. Maybe he has enough cash on him. Maybe he has a personal credit card. He can do something like that, get it refunded from the company money afterwards. That's an option. And this is something we often do in this sort of situation. We fix the problem. We go away from the process and we fix the problem. Or maybe he doesn't. Maybe he doesn't have that kind of cash. He doesn't have that extra credit card. He doesn't have that option. He might not be allowed to for security reasons. And then it fails. And there's an X, and then the process doesn't go any further. And if it stops at step 13, that's bad. And then the customer is unhappy because there's no refrigerator being delivered. Nobody wants that. Now, what does all this have to do with innovation? Why should you look at process innovation? Well, you'll notice that I spent a ton of time describing a process, and especially a delivery process, in detail. Now, I'm going to jump back a few slides, going back in the process, so to speak. Oh, tricky. Here. Look at all these things. There's so many of them where things can go wrong. But that also means there's so many where you might be able to eliminate a step. You might be able to make a step more efficient. What if Max needed to borrow the car and the car wasn't there? What if somebody else had been using the lifter? What if the distribution center wasn't open? What if today we all have smartphones, so GPSs are not a problem. But if you go back some years, just finding the customer's address was a problem. There are all these sorts of places where things can go wrong. So when we talk about process innovation, we talk about looking at these steps and thinking, what can we eliminate? What can we make simpler? What can we make better? What can we make safer? And one of the nice things about it is if you take out a process, even something like this, like delivering a refrigerator, and map it out into absurd detail. Most people would never make this a 23-step process, and we could easily make it 40 or 50 if we really tried. Then you'll find some holes, you'll find some blind spots, and they're going to be easy to fix. They won't require big innovation. Where if you just say, let's look at innovating the delivery. It's like, okay, I see we could do that. It's our core business. We deliver refrigerators. We're a small company. We're always testing out new stuff. But what do we look at? But if you map it out like this, if you look at what is the process, and what are the elements of the process, what are the stages, then it's pretty easy to say, oh, there? How we can do that? we can make sure that this is better. We can have a notification in the car so that whenever it's not in the parking lot, then all employees who drive cars, in this case Max and Andrea, they get pinged, they get a notification, so they never go down to the garage in vain and think they have the car when they don't have it. Pretty simple, but it might be efficient, because if not, we're counting on Max and Andrea to always update each other on where's the car, and their boss, ultimately. We could do a lot of things at a lot of these stages, but it's much easier to talk about if we talk about them as these like small isolated things. Because the bigger a problem becomes, the bigger and more murky a process becomes, the harder it is to actually innovate. So let's say you're not looking at delivering a single refrigerator, but you're looking at taking a container shipping, one of the big mask ships, and you're taking it from the port of Shanghai to the port of Copenhagen. That's a pretty big thing. There are many, let's just say there are many containers on one of these ships. There's crew, there's time, there's transport, there's an insane amount of money in each trip. And if you can make that trip cheaper or faster or safer or more environmental, all these sorts of things, then you'll have done some good for a company and for the world, especially if you're doing it more environmentally. But just look at that, say, let's innovate that trip. It's like, okay, yeah, but how do we attack it? Where are we looking at? And then somebody says, I have a way for how we could save some money on the food while improving the quality. And then it's tempting to say, that's nice, but we're looking at innovating the journey. Okay, too small an idea. Just forget it. But if you're looking at stages, if you're looking at the whole process, then it's very easy to come up with ideas. And they make a difference, even if it's small things. And in this case, this is the core competence of this fictional refrigerator company with Max and Andrea and their boss who likes to wear a crown. That would be pretty nice if they could kind of do something about that process, because it's what they're doing every single day. So I'm not saying you should care about all your processes. I'm not even saying you should map all your processes, because a lot of them, it just doesn't make sense. But your core processes, your core, let's just call it things you do. I wish back when I had a growing company that somebody had told me this and I'd listened, because there were so many things we did that were not that smart. And one of the things, and I'm going to share this very short, very small story, is we had a friend of mine who worked in sales come in, and he took a look at the company and asked us questions and did a couple of interviews with all of us. At this point, we were 4 people. And then he looked at, and he came to us with some analysis, and he says, okay, guys, I found out your most successful product, the most successful experience you sell is you sell educational role-playing to libraries. This is an event called the Adventure in the Library, Adventure Between the Books, and it's very successful. It gets great reviews. It has a nice kind of viral spread, so one customer tells another customer, etc. You've done a lot of them, and it looks like a really good thing. And we were sitting there, yeah, really good. Should we sell more? And he says, there's just one problem. Every time you're selling one of these, you're losing money. I said, oh, that's not good. So our best-selling thing is something where we're losing money. I said, yeah. How about we change that? We said, yeah. And Jakob would never have known that if he just looked at kind of the overall picture. He dived into detail. And then, of course, this was a simple thing like changing the pricing, and then things became better. Harder to sell, but better. But it's very easy to see an overall picture, and then if you dive deep into what the process is like, what the details are like, then you can make meaningful changes instead of just having the overview picture, and then you can just see what's going on, but you can't really change it easily, or you don't really know where to tweak. Nobody fixes an engine. They tweak a bolt, or they hammer on a thing, or they fix a tube. They don't just fix an engine. It's always in the details. The same with process innovation. Now, this has been a very long talk about process innovation. And, well, I think there's only one thing to say. It's a very, very good idea. So, if you're not already busy with processes, if you're not already thinking about them, if you're not already innovating, within your processes or doing process innovation, then I suggest you start. Thank you.